True scary stories usually become solved cases after following the same predictable pattern. A crime is committed, evidence is gathered, a suspect is identified, and eventually they're sentenced for their crime. Yet some of these strange but true stories have unexpected or creepy endings that no one could have predicted at the time, and it was thought that they would never be converted into solved cold cases. Number 5. In March of 2019, a 37-year-old woman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, whose name has not been released by investigators, lived through a true scary story after she obtained a no-contact order against her ex-boyfriend. At first, she believed she would be able to carry on with her life in peace, but for weeks after obtaining the restraining order, she started noticing strange things around her house. In one incident, she noticed the toilet seat had been left up, and in another she found a blanket in the corner of her basement, despite knowing for certain that she hadn't left it there. The strange but true story only got more frightening when she heard a noise coming from one of her upstairs rooms while she was cleaning the kitchen. Her children weren't home, and so she assumed that her cat had caused the noise by thumping into something in one of the rooms. But when she went upstairs to investigate, she was shocked to find her ex, a 31-year-old man named Kerry Kokutsi, in her bedroom, despite being ordered to not have any contact with her. As she entered the room, Kokutsi jumped out from behind her bedroom door, grabbed her by her arms, and placed his hand over her mouth. She started to flail her arms and managed to break free from his grasp before running downstairs, but Kokutsi followed close behind and grabbed her again. But again, she managed to escape, and she ran outside while screaming for help. Neighbors quickly called 911, and when officers arrived at the scene, they found Kokutsi in the house's attic under a pile of clothing. Upon being questioned, he confessed to living in the woman's attic for 2 weeks since he was tired of being homeless. He revealed that he had gained entry into the house via an unlocked side door, sneaking in and out on a daily basis. Kokutsi was charged with burglary and unlawful restraint, thankfully leaving the woman alive to tell her scary story. Number 4. One of the oldest solved cold cases in the history of Maine came to an end in 2012 when a strange piece of evidence identified the culprit in a true crime case. The scary story of 70-year-old Blanche Kimball started on the 12th of June 1976 when she was found deceased in her home on State Street in Augusta, Maine. Her neighbors had contacted the police after they became concerned, as she hadn't seen or heard from her in several days. Upon arrival at the house, officers found that it was in disarray, and they immediately knew something was wrong. Their suspicions were confirmed when they found Blanche had been attacked with a sharpened blade, but no obvious suspects were found, and the case went cold. A man named Gary Robb was questioned by the police, but he denied having any involvement in the case. And without further evidence to follow, other than the drop of biological matter found on a drawer in the house, he was set free, and it would be 37 years before it became a solved mystery. In 2011, Robb was accused of attacking a homeless man with a blade in Seattle, and interest in Blanche's story was renewed. Knowing that they had to obtain a fresh DNA sample from Robb, investigators set up a fake chewing gum survey in which he took part, unwittingly supplying them with the evidence they needed. The chewing gum was sent for forensic testing and compared to the biological material found in Blanche's house. When the results came back, they were found to be a match, and Robb was tracked down in Seattle, where he was living on the streets. It would then come to light that Blanche had taken Robb in as a boarder before he ended her life. Despite claiming that he had no memory of Blanche or the crime, he was found guilty on a charge of murder and sentenced to 20 years behind bars. He would, however, only serve 2 years before passing away in prison at the age of 67. Investigators stated that they were happy to turn the mystery into a solved cold case, despite the fact that Blanche's relatives had all passed away. Number 3. The true crime case of Sister Abaya, a 21-year-old Catholic sister in India, started on the 27th of March 1992, when she was reported as a missing person. On that morning, Sister Abaya had woken up at 4 a.m. to study for her exams, and the last time that she was seen was while she was on her way to the hostel's kitchen to get a drink from the fridge. Soon after, she was found to be missing, and in the kitchen, it was discovered that the fridge had been left open. A bottle of water was found spilled on the floor, and one of her slippers was found under the fridge. A search was quickly organized, and just a short while later, Sister Abaya's body was found in a well next to the convent's hostel. After a post-mortem was conducted, it was ruled that she'd accidentally slipped and fallen into the well where she drowned. However, in April of 1992, the crime branch of the Criminal Investigation Department took another look at the strange but true story, and they concluded that Sister Abaya had ended her own life by jumping into the well. But 3 years later, 3 forensic experts conducted a series of experiments with the use of a dummy, and they quickly came to the conclusion that they were in fact dealing with a homicide investigation. What followed was a series of failed investigations and inquiries that stretched over several years until 2008, when the scary story was finally solved. 2 priests named Thomas Couture and Jose Putrucail were arrested along with a nun named Sister Sefi, and they were charged with murder, defamation, and destruction of evidence. This came about after it was discovered that Sister Abaya had unwittingly stumbled upon the 2 priests and a nun in a compromising position, and fearing that she would reveal their secret, they attacked her before throwing her body down the well. After 28 years, the strange but true story of Sister Abaya's death had finally been turned into a solved cold case, and justice could be served. Couture received a double sentence of life in prison, while Sister Sefi received 1 life sentence. Putrucail was set free after it was ruled that he had served enough time behind bars during the cold case investigation. Number 2. In 1988, a scary story unfolded in Prescott, Arizona, when 19-year-old Pamela Pitts mysteriously disappeared, and it would take a further 30 years before her true crime case could be solved. At the time, Pamela had just moved out of her parents' house to share an apartment with a woman named Shelley Norgard. The two shared the same social circle, and soon after moving in together, they became good friends. Pam managed to find a job at a restaurant where she worked to save money as she had hopes of going to beauty college. But on the 16th of September, 1988, Shelley contacted Pamela's sister, Paul, to ask if he had heard from her. He said that he hadn't, and Shelley informed him that Pamela hadn't come home after leaving the apartment the previous night. When she also didn't show up for work the next day, Paul became concerned and filed a missing person report with the Prescott Police Department. Then on the 29th of September, a man who was visiting the Prescott National Forest was walking back to his truck when he discovered Pamela's remains. He rushed to the nearest payphone and informed the police, who were able to identify Pamela via her dental records. When Shelley was questioned, she told investigators that she'd been working on the night that Pamela disappeared, and she spent the rest of the night with friends before going back to her boyfriend's house. She found that she couldn't sleep and drove around in her car until 7 a.m. However, when her boyfriend was questioned, he stated that he had last seen Shelley at 11:30 p.m. that night, and witnesses stated that they saw Shelley driving around looking for Pamela. But despite discrepancies in her alibi, there wasn't enough evidence to arrest Shelley, and Pamela's true crime case went cold. Then in May of 1991, Shelley's boyfriend was found deceased in an abandoned mine shaft, and fingerprints at the scene were found to belong to Shelley, who confessed to the crime, receiving a sentence of 20 years in prison. While incarcerated, Shelley's phone calls were recorded, and in one conversation that she had with her father about Pamela's case, she stated that she had snapped, and investigators decided that this statement was enough to prove that she was responsible for the crime. She was arrested in Nevada in 2017, and she accepted a plea deal in which she would serve no additional time in prison, as long as she provided details of the crime. She stated that she and Pamela had been arguing since Pamela wanted to move out of their apartment, and when they got into a physical altercation at a party, she ended her life and fled before she was caught. Number 1. The strange but true scary story of 45-year-old Cecile Bombeek, an Order of St. Joseph nun, started in the 1970s after she had undergone surgery to remove a tumor from her brain. At first, the operation seemed to be a success, But her colleagues at a public hospital in Belgium soon started noticing that she was acting strangely, and to add to the mystery, 21 of the patients in her ward had passed away in the span of a year. It also came to light that many of the older patients in her ward had complained that they were mistreated by Cecile, who, unbeknownst to her workers, had become addicted to a painkiller following her surgery, and she'd been stealing from her patients to support her addiction. It was discovered that she had stolen more than $30,000 over the course of a year, and when an investigation was launched into the high mortality rate in her ward, Cecile's disturbing backstory revealed her true nature. It came to light that she'd been having affairs with a retired missionary and a local school teacher who she treated to expensive dinners and bottles of vintage wine. The money that she had stolen from her patients was not only being used to fuel her addiction, but also to give the impression that she was wealthy in order to impress the teacher and missionary. Then on the 16th of January, 1978, 3 nuns arrived at the police station to report that Cecile had ended the life of Maria Vandergunst, one of Cecile's patients who had suffered from diabetes. After her passing, Cecile used Maria's money and jewelry to finance her lavish lifestyle. When Cecile was questioned, she admitted that the story was true and added that she had also ended the lives of 2 other people, stating that she did so because they were difficult patients. The mystery was now a solved case, but Cecile was found incapable of standing trial due to insanity, and she was ultimately admitted to a psychiatric institution. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.